before I get started, I'd like to give a big thank you to Pastor Rachel for letting me bring the message today. I was scheduled to do it last Sunday, but of course we didn't have any church. So maybe the good Lord was trying to tell me something. I've got this all, I wrote it all out, and Peg, my wife, typed it all up for me because I didn't want to forget anything, okay? You'll have to forgive me if I appear to be nervous, because I am. This is my first time at bringing the message, so be patient with me. It's not really a message or a sermon, it's actually a testimony. I'm going to share with you my journey up to now. You may think you know me, but maybe you don't. I will share with you my ups and my downs, my good times and my tough times. Like everyone else, I've made mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm still learning. One thing that always stands out to me is that God has truly blessed me, and He continues to guide me on my journey. Amen. I can remember growing up as a kid. As you know, I have four brothers, I'm sorry, and one sister. And of course, we always had our disagreements, our arguments, and yes, our fights, as siblings will do. Mary Kay, my sister, the only girl, she had to be tough as nails, and she was. I have scars to prove it. I'll be honest, there were times when I was pretty mean and cruel to her, like a bully. Sis, I apologize for that. I know Mary Kay has forgiven me because of the love and kindness that she shows me and all my brothers. I am blessed to have Mary Kay as my sister and blessed with all my brothers as well. I do know that as a family, we have been blessed. We are still here, still together. We will have disagreements, but we have always remained together. And I think that has a lot to do with how we were raised. Amen. Growing up, Mom and Dad were so good to us. I don't see how they did it. 6 kids. I know things weren't easy, but we wanted for nothing. Of course, back then, as kids growing up, we always protest against Mom and Dad. They were the enemies. You know, it's not fair. Looking back now as a parent and a grandparent, I see we were blessed. I can remember every Sunday morning, Mom was after you to get up, get ready for church. Even as a teenager, and I was out late Saturday night, that was too bad. You were going to church. Mom never let up. Mom and Dad always pointed us in the right direction. My dad, I miss him so much. He always helped me out and did so much for me. When you're young, you take so much for granted. And then now looking back, you realize, man, Mom and Dad sacrificed and gave us kids so much. Amen. We were truly blessed. Mom, Dad, I thank you and I love you very much. I love you. After I got out of high school, I went into farming with Dad and on my own after a while. After a year or two, I met my beautiful wife-to-be. I'm not going to say where we met or what we were doing. I'll just say that it was a party. What happened was that I tripped and fell down. Next thing I knew, there was this hand reaching out to help me up. And 21 years old, and I was still clumsy. We dated for 2 years, and then we got married on an October Saturday evening in 1982. We've had our ups and our downs. We both learned a lot during our first years of marriage. I learned then to keep my mouth shut and just say, okay, yes, dear. A close call with a frozen pizza tends to make a person think things through. Okay. We have been married 37 years, almost 38.
Wow.
Thank you for putting up with me, Peg. I love you. It wasn't too long after we got married that I went to work for the Geary Public Schools, driving a school bus and maintaining the buses and other school vehicles. I was trained by the best, Irene Austin. She was a great lady, and she taught me so much. In April of 1987, our daughter Sarah was born, and because of complications, Peg and Sarah were in the hospital twice as long as normal. I remember when the doctor first diagnosed Peg, he said that it was a tumor. And of course, that made me, and especially Peg, scared to death and worried. We were set up to see a specialist, and when we got there, the blood tests had come in, and they came in positive, showing that Peg was pregnant. It wasn't a tumor, it was just an early pregnancy. What a relief, but that wasn't the end of it. When Sarah was born, she came into the world the wrong way, and her lungs were full of fluid. I mean, she was turning blue. Mm. It was such a helpless feeling. They called in a second doctor, and before long, Sarah was screaming and squalling. And the good Lord was definitely watching over us that night. Before long, Sarah was growing like a weed, and I continued to work at the bus barn during the day and farm in the evenings and the weekends. I really missed a lot of Sarah growing up because every spare time I got when I wasn't on the job, I was farming. At that time, I was farming 3/4 of land and running about 30 cows. I took over farming my father-in-law's place just before he passed away, so I was roading my tractor and machinery 17 miles up to Watonga to farm his land. After a while, I became the transportation director at Geary Schools. I worked hard to improve my certification. I went to VOTEC for mechanics classes. I soon acquired my inspector's license, also went to training and received my Oklahoma bus instructor's license certification where I could train drivers. I'm pretty proud of how far I've come, and I couldn't have done it without the good Lord guiding me and showing me the way.
Amen.
In 2005, I was able to achieve the national certification as Certified Director of School Transportation. That was a lot of hard work and training, and the test was 3 hours long. But it was all worth it. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm tooting my horn or bragging. It was just a proud time in my life. I couldn't have done it without God's help and the support of my wife and my whole family. In August of 2003, my dad passed away. It was a really hard time for our whole family. I could still hear him hollering up the stairs, "Okay, boys, it's time to get up. Let me hear those feet hit the floor." It's funny, when my grandma, she used to live just down the road south of us, she could always hear Dad yelling and screaming. And she knew that he was yelling and screaming at us boys. She knew that we were either working cattle or cutting wheat. And I will always remember the advice and guidance that I've received from Dad. Ever since Dad has been gone, there's just always that empty space that can't be filled. But I always remember the advice and guidance I received from him. And some of the things he would say or yell at us boys, of course I can't repeat all of it, but he was always good to his kids. And he was a good man. I miss him so much. Not too long after Dad passed away, I thought long and hard about quitting farming. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot of money in the wheat farming. I remember one year I had a 50 bushel to the acre crop and sold it for less than $2 a bushel, and I still lost money. My calf crop would always bail me out. I was putting a lot of my job pay into my farming. I was just getting burnt out on the farming. I no longer looked forward to jumping on the tractor or the combine. The only thing I knew I was going to miss was my cows, and I still do. So I let my leases go, sold all my machinery and my cows, started devoting my time to the bus barn and my job. It was different, but I got used to it. Before too long, Sarah graduated high school and was on her own. And one day, she told her mom that she was pregnant. It hurts you at first. She's unmarried and still young. I learned to never say never and not to be worried about what other people thought or said.
Amen.
Sarah already knew me and her mother were disappointed in her. But me and her mother, especially her mother, gave her the support and help when she needed it. I wasn't ready to be a grandpa yet, but here it is, whether I like it or not. On the 8th day of the 8th month of 2008, can you dig that? 8808. And that's something. Xander Bryce was born. That day was a blessing to me. I got my boy. I almost cried the first time I held him. Everybody was thinking I was losing it. I was just so happy. To this day, he's my buddy. I call him Bubba. Xander and Sarah lived with us from the time he was 5 months old. About a year and a half ago, Sarah got married, and they moved to Oklahoma City. I was so used to seeing him every day. That was hard to take. He would meet me at the door every day that I come home from work. Now I can't wait until the weekend, spring break, Christmas break, or summer when he comes and spends time with me and Gigi. He calls me Papa, but now he's getting where he calls me Pops. And I don't know if I like that or not. Xander's my buddy. I don't mean to be jumping around, but I guess I am. Also in 2008, after 24 years at Geary Schools, I resigned and accepted a position at El Reno Public Schools to be their transportation director. It was a very hard decision. After discussing it with my wife and thinking on it long and hard, I decided to take the job. I knew I was going to miss all the people that I worked with at Geary, but I had fond memories. And one memory in particular, as you know, my mom drove a bus for over 35 years for Geary Schools, and quite a few of those years I was her boss. Needless to say, it was pretty interesting around the bus barn. You know the old saying, I brought you into this world, I can take you out? Mm-hmm. I heard that numerous times. One time, we had just gotten our new big red bus. We're all pretty proud of it. Mom drove it to a junior high football game. Sometime during the game, someone had keyed it from one end to the other. The next morning, Mom showed it to me, and of course, I lost it. You know, you always seem to take out your frustrations on the ones that are closest to you. Well, Mom, I unloaded on her. Later that afternoon, after I had cooled down, I was going to go out and apologize to her. She was sitting in her bus before her route, just reading a magazine. Before I talked to her, I walked around her bus, of course, to check it out, make sure everything was all right. About the time I got up to her stop arm, it's that stop sign that swings out. Okay. She flipped the switch, that old sign come out and got me right in the face. Yeah. And she nailed me right in the face. She was just sitting there reading a magazine. That was the biggest smile I ever seen on her face. And I just said, okay, Mom, I had it coming. I apologize. Okay, when I first started my new job, I was overwhelmed at El Reno. El Reno's a Class 5A school with around 2,000 students. I had 14 bus routes and supervised 20 drivers, including an assistant and a mechanic. We had 24 buses and numerous other vehicles that we had to maintain. All total, we had to take care of 40 vehicles or more. We transported well over 1,000 students per day. My first year was pretty tough. The change of job was really hard on me. Don't get me wrong, the new people at El Reno that I met and worked with were great. They all welcomed me with open arms. The school administration was great. They helped me anytime I needed it. I was just having a hard time adjusting to my new job. Everything at my work site needed improvement. The bus fleet was old and aging. I was really disappointed with my workplace. I went through a time of depression and anxiety. I ended up having visits with my pastor and my doctor who prescribed medication. I think it was a mixture of all the changes I had experienced, losing my dad, changing jobs, becoming a grandfather earlier than I thought I would. It just all hit me at once. With my strong faith in God and the help of my wife and loved ones, I buckled down and bounced back. I attended the walk to Emmaus and strengthened and refreshed my faith in God. I went into Emmaus thinking I had to be saved or something, but something told me in my prayers, just told me that I'd already been saved, that I was already there. I just needed to get refreshed and let my faith in God and Jesus strengthen. Moving forward from that time, I've become very much involved in Methodist men and in the church. I began to say prayers in the church at offering time, thanks to a persistent pastor we had at that time. I began to say prayers at other functions and at work for my drivers. I was becoming real comfortable saying prayers and being a messenger for God. In the years to come, I became stronger at my work, making all the improvements that I wanted and needed to make, stronger as a supervisor and director, which wasn't easy when you have 20 different personalities to deal with, and there's always a shortage of bus drivers. But I kept pushing forward, doing the best job I can do, and doing God's work. That's what I tell my drivers every day. We are doing God's work, protecting and transporting the most precious cargo in the world. A neat little story I'd like to tell you about some of my experiences in El Reno. One morning I was at an area where we load and unload buses. I always carry a big stop sign that I use to stop traffic at crosswalks so students can cross the street and get on the bus safely. There was a little African-American boy, a kindergartner. He was cute as a bud, and his name was Frank. He always liked to hold my stop sign when I wasn't using it. One time when I needed the sign back, he said, "Can I go stop traffic?" I said, "No, you need to stay here where it's safe." And I told him I was old, fat, and ugly, that it wouldn't hurt me if a car bumped me. He just looked up at me and he said, "You're not ugly." You know, if I had documented everything that I have encountered in this line of work, now going on 35 years, I could probably write a book. In the years still to come, I will continue to be stronger in my job and all that I do, and most of all in my faith and in God. Not too long ago, I was asked to be the lay leader of this church. I can remember asking, "Can I have some time to think about it?" The truth is, I'd already made up my mind. At that very moment, I made up my mind. It was a blessing to me. As I continue to walk the path that as I continue to walk the path the good Lord has laid down for me, I will learn from my mistakes, but I know deep in my heart, as I walk with Jesus, that my faith is strong. I will always be strong at doing God's work and serving God and this church to the best of my abilities. And I'll close with one of my favorite Bible verses. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Amen.